Welcome to the League of Hermies, Herminators, where you can enjoy a game of Arena with me. Before I start my Arena series, I would like to share to you, Herminators, some tips on how to draft a deck. I know many newcomers and pre-existing players are still wanting to achieve that 12 win status, but always coming so close, but yet so far. I do have an average of 8 wins in Arena with occasional 12 wins from time to time, so I somewhat am worthy of sharing my secret arts to you. Without further much ado, let's draft. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is which class to pick. Some players think that going for the best class is equal to a high win rate, but that is not always true. Players that pick the class that they are the most comfortable with get an even higher win rate because they are more familiar with the cards and the possible synergies within the class, which we will talk about later. If you are new to the arena, I do have a tier list of the classes, only if you don't have a specific class that you're comfortable with yet. It will be on the right hand side. Number 2 is the mana curve. So there are many ways to build an arena deck like aggro, mid-range, or control, but we'll be talking about that later. Every deck, in my opinion, needs a certain amount of cards at each mana cost so that you are able to play a creature every turn. Imagine you're on turn 2, but you're stuck with 4 drops or 5 drops in your opening hand. You're now set back at least 3 turns where your opponent, who has a better mana curve, already summoned at least 2 minions on the board. So every deck roughly needs the following in order to have a consistent deck. 5 to 6 2 mana drop, 3 to 4 3 mana drop, 4 to 5 4 mana drop, 2 to 3 5 mana drops. Then you might ask, this only fills up half the deck, right? And that is entirely true because your other cards determines what type of deck is going to be, like either aggro, mid-range, or control as we mentioned before. Let's say I want to build a control deck. The other cards would consist more of late game cards while also having removal cards to control the board. I know, your deck will always have this kind of curve, but it's quite okay because having something roughly like this will allow you to play a creature out almost every turn. Number 3 is card selection. Now the meat of drafting is here. First things first though, we need to know how to rank just how good a card is. So I have a tier list in the description below. Generally, you want to pick the best out of the 3 cards and rank them from it sucks, it's okay, to damn that's badass. When I draft my cards, I like to divide the first 15 cards from the last 15 cards. The first 15 cards we pick as much value card as possible, then for the last 15 we fill in the gaps. The last 15 cards determine what types of deck we are going to build, what type of synergies it's going to have, and also to patch up the mana curve so it's more consistent. The reason why I do it this way is because we can't really determine if it's a good deck with just the first 15 cards, so we might as well pick as much value cards as possible, right? After the first 15, we then notice what type of curve we have and what needs to be done to make it better. I don't usually like talking about synergy because you generally don't need it in Arena, as cards that do well individually are good enough. Synergies are usually picked during the last 10 cards of your deck. The reason why I say that is because if you pick something like Iron Sensei in the beginning of the draft and end up with no mechs at all, then that card is pretty much useless. But let's say Iron Sensei shows up near the end of the draft. Now you're able to see what kind of card synergizes with Iron Sensei than picking it blind in the beginning. The last thing I'm going to say though is sometimes you need to give up a good card for a better curve. Let's say there's a Yeti, Geomancer, and Elven Archer and you already have tons of 4 drops but little 2 drops. I would potentially pick Geomancer over the Yeti even though the Yeti is more of a value pick here. This is my short guide for the arena drafting. I hope you Herminators found it useful. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe as it will help me out. Also, don't forget to like my Facebook or follow me on Twitter as I would love to interact with you guys outside of YouTube. And as always, stay gold, Herminators.